All right, Shalom. Giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh. Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Rachakodash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, wherever you may be. Shalom, Yahshua, Shalom. All right, we're going to jump right into Acts chapter 9, starting at verse 1. So it says, And Saul, yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord, went unto the high priest. Because when we last left off dealing with Saul, there was a time of great persecution, that was coming upon the faithful believers, all right, in Yahushua, that is. And Saul was a Pharisee. So it says, and desired of him letters to Damascus, to the synagogues, that if he found any of this way, whether they were men or women, he might bring them bound unto Jerusalem. So this is what he asked, the particular authority here, or, in the synagogues at Damascus, that if he found any Israelite, he wants to bring them in, okay, pretty much bind them, okay, and I'm asking for your help in this. So it says, and as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Yahushua, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. So this is Yahushua paying Saul, or Paul, who was Saul at the time, paying Saul a visit. Okay. And we always like to read, which is what was above Acts 26, because it goes into the same thing. But it shows you that Yahushua is his true name, because he said his own name in the Hebrew tongue. And he himself is an Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Judah, the root and offspring of David, the lion of the tribe of Judah. Okay. So he wouldn't have said that his name was Jesus. In fact, the letter J at that time didn't exist. So it would be impossible for him to come to Saul and say, my name is Jesus. Okay. Oh yeah, I was going to read this. So it says, Acts 26 and 12, same thing we just read. So it says, whereupon as I went to Damascus with authority and commission from the chief priests at midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journey with me. And when we were all fallen to the earth, I heard a voice speaking unto me and saying in the Hebrew tongue, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Right? In the Hebrew tongue. He said, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. So all that was, as you see on the screen, red letter, meaning Yahushua speaking. This was all said in the Hebrew language. And then it goes on to say, and I said, Who art thou, Lord? So Paul responded back to him, obviously in the Hebrew, because if the Lord was speaking Hebrew, he wouldn't have spoke Greek to him, though he knew Greek. All right. Paul himself is an Israelite, so he understood the Greek or the Latin. Okay. All right. Sorry, because Paul was a Roman citizen, that is. He was an Israelite, but he was a Roman citizen. Okay. But anyways, he wouldn't have responded back to the Lord, all right, in another language. He spoke back to him in Hebrew. So this is a conversation that is happening in the Hebrew tongue. It says, and I said, Who art thou, Lord? And he said, I am Yahushua. Because remember, he says in the Hebrew tongue, Jesus is not Hebrew. The letter J did not exist around this time. If anything, the letter J would have been substituted, or actually not even substituted, because the letter J didn't exist. But my point is, there would have been a letter I there, all right, where you see the letter J. And that's not what he said, because once again, he spoke in the Hebrew tongue. I am Yahushua, whom thou persecutest, but rise and stand upon thy feet, for I have appeared unto thee for this purpose, to make thee a minister and a witness, both of these things which thou hast seen, and of those things in the which I will appear unto thee, delivering thee from the people and from the Gentiles, which are Israelites, unto whom now I send thee, you see, to open their eyes and to turn them from darkness to light and from the power of Satan unto the Most High, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and inheritance among them which are sanctified by faith that is in me. Okay. And all that speaks to Israelites. not heathens, man. But we're not going to get into that right now, because as we go into Acts chapter 10, all right, we begin to talk about these things, because we'll get to when we get to it. Let's stick with this chapter here. So going back to Acts chapter 9, verse 3 says, and as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Yahushua, whom thou persecutest. It is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And that's why Acts chapter 26 is so important, because in Acts chapter 9 and Acts chapter 22, it doesn't mention the portion there where he speaks about the Hebrew tongue. But in Acts chapter 26, it does mention that. It says, and he trembling and astonished said, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the city, and it shall be told thee what thou must do. So he sent Paul on a mission. It says, and the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing a voice, but seeing no man. Okay. And it's not exactly clear if Paul actually saw Yahushua or not, but we know for a fact that the men that were with him didn't see Yahushua, but they heard his voice speaking. Okay. It says, and Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And when it says he saw no man, it's talking about he went blind. That's why it says they led him by the hand, because they had to guide him. All right. He didn't have like the blind people have now, a cane ready at hand. No, this happened suddenly upon him on his way to Damascus, and the Lord blinded him. All right. But it was all, to make do on this next portion here. It says, and he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink, which he basically, it was a fast. Okay. He didn't eat or drink. And he didn't necessarily like it was willingly. It was an unwilling fast. But I mean, obviously it was a fast because he didn't eat for 3 days or drink for 3 days. And he was blinded for 3 days. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias. And to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Lord. And the Lord said unto him, Arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus, for behold, he prayeth. All right, I want to get this word straight here. I got the wrong one. I got street. Need to go out. Yeah, I got street right now. All right, so I want to get straight. Let's see what straight goes into. All right. Level, straightforward, right, true, sincere, straightway, immediately, forthwith. Okay. But we're talking about a street here. Just curious what comes up. That's not money. Okay. Just want to look into it real quick. Nothing really too important there. Now, if this was straight in another context, there's something else we can get from it. So continuing on in verse 12, it says, and hath seen, it says, inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus. This is what the Spirit told Ananias. For behold, he prayeth, which actually this is Yahushua, because it's a red letter. It says, and had seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him that he might receive his sight. So he's telling Ananias that Saul is praying, go to Judas to find him. He's praying, and he's seeing pretty much a vision of you right now, that you would come, and heal him. So it says, then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man, how much evil he had done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he hath authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. Talking about Yahushua's name, because that was a thing, to be teaching the doctrine in Yahushua's name, especially with miracles brought up on top of that. All right, those chief priests, those wicked Pharisees or whatever, really didn't like that. It says, as a matter of fact, let me stop right here, okay? Because we can go back and get that in Acts. Let me jump over real quick. Chapter 8. what he spoke about. It says, and Saul, all right, Saul persecutes the church, and Saul was consenting unto his death. And at that time, there was a great persecution against the church, which was at Jerusalem. And this is talking about, because as a matter of fact, we jump back one more chapter, okay? And down at the bottom of this chapter, this was the martyrdom of Stephen. And we have here, we get down there to the bottom of the chapter, in chapter 7, here it is. All right, so we'll just get right here. Actually, we got to go above. So it says, then they cried out with a loud voice, verse Acts 7:57, Acts chapter 7, verse 57, with a loud voice, and stopped their ears, and ran upon him with one accord, and talking about Stephen, and cast him out of the city, and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet, whose name was Saul. See, Saul was there. He was one of the wicked Pharisees who were also okaying this act of stoning Stephen for that great speech he gave further up above in this chapter, putting out all their history in front of the Pharisees of all people, who they were the ones who were so learned in the law and the history and things. All right, so I know that really hurt their feelings. All right, it really hurt their credibility. So it says, and laid down their clothes at a young man's feet, whose name was Saul. And they stoned Stephen, calling upon the Most High, and saying, Lord, Yahweh shall receive my spirit. And he kneeled down and cried with a loud voice, Lord, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep. And then also, speaking on the persecution, going back to that, it says in Saul, Acts chapter 8, verse 1, Saul persecutes the church, and Saul was consenting unto his death. You see? And Saul was consenting unto his death. And at that time, there was a great persecution against the church, which was at Jerusalem. When he says consenting unto his death, is going back to what we just read in Acts chapter 7, unto Stephen's death. He was right there. Okay? So this is the beginning of hearing about Saul, but the Lord is not yet dealing with him. That's what we're reading about now in Acts chapter 9. Okay? So it says, and they were all scattered abroad throughout the regions of Judea and Samaria, except the apostles. And this is where we go into what we talked about last time, Philip. Okay. But continuing on with this point, it says, and devout men carried Stephen to his burial and made great lamentation over him. As for Saul, he made havoc of the church. All right. He made havoc of the church, entering into every house, and hailing men and women, committed them to prison. Okay. It says, therefore, they that were scattered abroad went everywhere, preaching the word. Of course, as we just read, except for the apostles who stayed at Jerusalem. So when we go back over here and read this again, verse 13 says, then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard by many of this man how much evil he had done to thy saints at Jerusalem. You see, it says, and here he had authority from the chief priests. All right, here, and what was this place name? Oh yeah, here in Damascus, right? It says, and here, right here in Damascus, right? It says, and here he hath authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord and bind, pretty much talking about the same thing. Mentioned to put them in the jail, all right? Put them in chains. All right, the word deo. To bind, tie, fasten, fasten with chains, to throw into chains. What, to bring them, to the prison. All right. So, all right, going back. So it says, and here he hath authority from the chief priest to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles. All right, meaning the name of Yahushua, and talking about his rank, what his purpose for. All right, the Lord is Savior. All right, before the Gentiles. These Gentiles being who? Israelites and kings and the children of Israel. Okay. And this is important. As a matter of fact, let me get this word Gentiles real quick, because I'm going to get something real, a little ethnos. Okay. Tribe, nation, people, group, multitude of individuals of the same nature or genus. In the Old Testament, foreign nations not worshiping the true pagans. Those are the natural Gentiles, which are the heathens. But you have in the New Testament Israelites that were being called Gentiles because of the history, which we just went into in the Maccabees, the history of those wicked Israelites that fell out and forsook the Holy Covenant. And this is Paul uses the term for Gentile Christians. So it's very important, though. It says, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel. All right. This is very important to remember. Let's get the word chosen first. Eklogay, the act of picking out or choosing. Okay. A thing or person chosen, of persons the Most High's elect. Now remember that, because even more important, we're going to get this word vessel here, and we're going to bring this back up later. Scales, or have you said, all right? A vessel, okay? This is what we want right here. It says a man of quality, a chosen instrument, okay? He is a chosen vessel. The Lord is saying that Saul is a man of quality and a chosen instrument directly by me, Yahushua, okay? And so the Lord sent him, and then he set up Ananias, all right, to go meet up with Saul. So let's keep going. It says, verse read 15 again, says, but the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel, meaning those Jews of Judea, of the circumcision. All right, it says, for I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. And Paul did suffer a lot of things, man. Okay, if we go further on into, all right, the scriptures, all right, we get to 2 Corinthians 11 and 22. It says, are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of the Messiah? I speak as a fool. I am more, in labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in deaths often. Of the Jews, 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. Thrice was I beaten with rods. Once was I stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck. A night and a day I have been in the deep, in journeyings often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils by my own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, she meant the sea like 3 times, in perils among false brethren, in weariness and painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness, beside those things that are without, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches, right? Which was the heaviest load there, okay? Having to see over the matters of all these different churches, which is why he wrote those letters. He could travel, which he did travel to some of these places, but it is more convenient for him to write letters, all right? And some of those letters were actually read at other churches, okay? But it was important for him to write those letters so he can more conveniently send them out and address the matters at the churches that were going on that need to be corrected. And also, boost them up in the faith. But most importantly, to correct those different matters that were going on in the churches that were off. See? So that was a very heavy, thing for him to be dealing with, because there was a lot going on in different churches. And you actually will notice that some of those things are mentioned, some of those same things are mentioned at different churches. It goes to show you that some of those same things were taking place. But then all the different churches had particular things that were going on specifically in those churches. But let's keep going. So Acts chapter 9, verse 16 says, for I will show him how great things he must suffer for my name's sake. And surely Paul went through the ringer. Says verse 17 says, and Ananias went his way and entered into the house, and putting his hands on him said, brother Saul, the Lord, even Yahushua, that appeared unto thee in the way as thou camest, hath sent me, that thou mightest receive thy sight and be filled with the Holy Spirit. And immediately there fell from his eyes as it had been scales. And that's what Yahushua said. Okay, I'm sending you, Ananias, to Saul, so he can get his eyesight back. And this immediately it happened. And immediately there fell from his eyes as it had been scales. And he received his sight, and he received sight forthwith, and arose and was baptized. And when he had received meat, he was strengthened. Then was Saul certain days with the disciples which were at Damascus. So he dealt with, he chilled with, some brothers that were in here at Damascus. Obviously, Ananias being one of them. Okay. So it says Saul begins to preach the Messiah, and straightway, meaning immediately, all right, because we mentioned straightway before, because we go into straightway this time, all right, we get a different meaning. Okay, will it come up? Okay, there we go. All right, straightway. See, immediately, forthwith. We just read forthwith, immediately. So that's what it means. So it says, and immediately, straightway, he preached the Messiah in the synagogues that he is the Son of the Most High, because he just had an experience, a first-hand experience. All right, as a Pharisee who didn't believe that Yahushua was the Lord and Savior when he, because this is afterwards, after he had already been persecuted and crucified. These are things that are happening afterwards. So as a wicked Pharisee himself, he also did not believe. And so the Lord came to him personally to make him believe, first by blinding him, then as he was praying, sending Ananias there to give him back his vision. And while he was praying, he had the vision come to him about a man healing him, being Ananias. So now he has a first-hand experience, an account, okay, about Yahushua. And there's no more denying, all right? Because it's one thing when you're just dealing with words and a doctrine, but to actually have an experience yourself, there's no more denying it, even as a Pharisee. So verse 21 says, but all that heard him were amazed and said, is not this he that destroyed them which called on this name in Jerusalem? Yeah, is this not Saul? Okay, the man that were persecuting the Israelites for calling on the name of Yahushua, and came hither for that intent, and he came here to preach Yahushua? They were like, that he might bring them bound into the chief priest. That's what he's here for. All right. He's using craftiness. He's using our faith in Yahushua against us. He's teaching Yahushua in attempt to get close to us so he can snag a trap for us and bring us in. That's what he's here for. That's what they were thinking. And rightfully so, because he was persecuting the Israelites, those that were of the faith in Yahushua. Verse 22 says, but Saul increased the more in strength and confounded the Jews which dwelt at Damascus, proving that this is very Messiah. All right. Basically saying, he probably told the account of what happened to him. OK, who knows? All right. But it says Paul increased more and then confounded them. So some way, somehow within the doctrine, Paul was able to teach the right way, stand his ground and grow. OK, from that. It says, and after that, many days were fulfilled, because you have to remember there were also wicked Israelites who didn't believe that Yahushua was the Messiah. They were under the wicked Pharisees. OK, so this is probably some of those same gang-saying Israelites, these Jews here, the non-believers. OK, but I highly doubt that, because they mention about him being the same one that persecuted Israelites. So it's really hard to tell here exactly what crowd he's dealing with. OK, but continuing on, it says, and after that many days were fulfilled, the Jews took counsel to kill him. All right. And this is why, it may be possible that these are those wicked Israelites that were part of Yahushua's persecution. But it says, after that many days were fulfilled, the Jews took counsel to kill him. All right. Because he was doing what? Teaching in Yahushua's name. It says, but their laying await was known of Saul, and they watched the gates day and night to kill him. Then the disciples took him by night and let him down by the wall in a basket. OK, showing how important that brotherhood was, because, Saul might have been out of there if it wasn't for the brothers. All right. Because we just talked about up above how he chilled with those, brothers here in Damascus. All right. Those faithful Israelites that believed in Yahushua. All right. The brotherhood. And here it is again. Also the same brotherhood helping him, escape these people that want to take him out. OK, because these Israelites knew that Saul, persecuted other Israelites and didn't believe in Yahushua. But here he is teaching Yahushua, and they thought something was up. So it says, and when Saul was come to Jerusalem, he essayed to join himself, basically meaning he attempted to join himself to the disciples. OK, but they were all afraid of him and believed not that he was a disciple, once again, because he was persecuting the church, and he also just played part in persecuting Stephen, one of the first martyrs, And we know that as a Pharisee, he didn't believe in Yahweh Shah. So there was very valid reasons for everybody to be afraid of Saul, because they didn't know if Saul was going to try to spring a trap and take them in. Okay. So it says, but Barnabas, verse 27, took him and brought him to the apostles. All right, Barnabas. Okay. Let's see what Barnabas' name means. See what Barnabas' name means. Son of rest. The surname of Joses or Joseph, a Levite of Cyprus. Bar. Is that Gabayah? Gabayah? Gabia? Or Nabaya. Nabia. Prophet. Interesting. Let's see what this is. Bar. Son. Because bun, it says bun right here, which means son in Hebrew. Because bun is the proper way. Right? You get some that say bin, like bin Israel or something. That's going off. That's not, proper. It's bun. But anyways, let's continue. So he says, but Barnabas took Saul, and brought him to the apostles. Remember, the apostles remained at Jerusalem. It says, and declared unto them how he had seen the Lord in the way. And that because, the other, there were other disciples that also taught, but were scattered, as we went into Philip's account, So it says, and declared unto them how he had seen the Lord in the way, and that he had spoken to him, and how he had preached boldly at Damascus in the name of Yahweh Shah. So he just basically told them what just happened, what we just read up above to the apostles. So it says, and he was with them coming in and going out at Jerusalem. So he basically, Paul was basically on a learning curve here. All right. Because as we get into Acts chapter 10, the coming in of the Gentiles really started with, rightfully so, the head of the church, which is Peter. Okay. It started with Peter, but the heavy lot of that was set in Paul's lap. Okay. But Paul had to work up to it. So it says, and he was with them coming in and going out at Jerusalem. And he spake boldly in the name of the Lord Yahweh Shah, and disputed against the Grecians, but they went about to slay him. Who is it talking about? He's talking about Israelites, man. Greek-speaking Jews. Okay? Hellenistes. A Hellenist. One who imitates the manners and customs or the worship of the Greeks and use the Greek tongue. You see, used in the New Testament of Jews born in foreign lands and speaking Greek, like the account with the distribution of the food, all right, and those widows that were being neglected. Those were, let me get, let's see if it'll pop up in the NLT. Is that verse 29? You see, Acts 29 and 29 in the NLT, he debated with some Greek-speaking Jews. These were not Edomites or any heathens. These were Israelites, but they tried to murder him. These were Greek-speaking Israelites. So going back, it says, and he spake boldly in the name of the Lord Yahushua, and disputed against the Grecians, other Israelites, Greek-speaking Jews, but they went about to slay him. Which when the brethren knew, they brought him down to Caesarea, and sent him forth to Tarsus. So now this is the second time where people wanted his head. And so the brotherhood, okay, brought him down to Caesarea, and then sent him actually back to his hometown, Tarsus, all right? Like, all right, Saul, we're going to send you to Tarsus now. All right. So you continue doing what you do from Tarsus. Then had the churches rest throughout all Judea and the Galilee and Samaria. Because once again, people were afraid of Saul. Like they didn't know what he was going to be doing. They thought he was just trying to spring a trap. It says, and were edified and walking in the fear of the Lord and in the comfort of the Holy Spirit will multiply. And this is the last we hear about Saul for the moment, where he ends up, they send him, they brought him down to Caesarea and then send him to Tarsus, which is where he's from. And the next time you hear about Saul, we actually pick back up on him where he is, where he was sent to, which is Tarsus. But we now jump over to following Peter's ministry. Okay. So it says, and it came to pass, as Peter passed throughout all quarters, he came down also to the saints which dwelt at Lydda. And there he found a certain man named Aeneas, which had kept his bed 8 years and was sick of the palsy. Okay. Let Let's see where Lydda is. Let's see if we can pull that up real quick. Strife, a town 9 miles or 15 kilometers from Joppa, and is the first town on the northernmost of the two roads between that place and Jerusalem. Yeah, Joppa comes up again in Acts chapter 10, because you deal with Peter, who was here at Joppa, okay, and he was called for by Cornelius to come up to Caesarea Philippi on the coast of the Mediterranean, which they're both right there on the Mediterranean coast, but Joppa is south, okay, from where Cornelius was in Caesarea Philippi. All right, so, oh yeah, I was gonna let me see if I can I might see if I can map that for you. Bear with me a second here. Let me see. We could probably pull up Joppa here. Come on. Oh, here we go. It's a good one. There's Lydda. It mentions there's Lydda right there. Then you have Joppa, and if you keep going north where Joppa is, you get to Caesarea Philippi. Okay. Oh, here we go. There you go. There you go. You see? Here's Judea. Okay. You got Jerusalem that was here, Lydda, northwest, Joppa, northwest of Lydda, Caesarea Philippi, right there north, almost on the border, both on the Mediterranean Sea. So that map will actually come back up for us again as we go into Acts chapter 10. So let's go back. So you get the the general idea of where these things are going down, where everything is happening at. So it says, he came down also to the saints which dwelt at Lydda, and there he found a certain man named Aeneas, which had kept his bed 8 years and was sick of the palsy. And this is one of the first acts of healing that we get from Paul. Okay, Saul, Paul, however you will. It says in Peter. I'm sorry, not Saul. Peter. Actually, no, I take that back. It's not one of the first acts. Okay, I believe there was one further back. Yeah. Okay, but anyways, we get another act. We'll just say that. Okay, of Peter. It says, and Peter said unto him, Aeneas, Yahushua Mashiach, make thee whole. Arise and make thy bed. And he arose immediately. And notice he says that Yahushua maketh thee whole. Okay. It says, Acts chapter 9, verse 35, and all that dwelt at Lydda and Saron saw him and turned to the Lord. Okay. Did I make... Okay, yeah. I'm going to make sure I clear that up. Yeah, because we talk about Peter, Lydda, and so on and so forth. And Saul was sent to Tarsus. Okay. So it says, and Peter said unto him, Aeneas, Yahushua HaMashiach, maketh thee whole. Arise and make thy bed. And he arose immediately. Okay. He said, arise and make thy bed. Just like that. Just like, what's his name? Lazarus, right? Yahushua told him to rise. It says, and all that dwelt at Lydda and Saron saw him and turned to the Lord. So they saw this act that Peter did, and many believed because it was in the name of Yahushua. Because you have to understand, Yahushua's fame grew when he was doing his ministry. He traveled places too. Okay, he was the first true missionary. Okay, so his name rang bells. All right, people were hearing about this Yahushua of Nazareth that was doing miracles and teaching the gospel about repentance through him, through their faith in him. It says, now there was at Joppa a certain disciple named Tabitha, which by interpretation is called Dorcas. All right, Tabitha, whose name was Dorcas. This woman here, meaning gazelle, says the name of a woman Peter raised from the dead, which we're about to read. So it says, this woman was full of good works and alms deeds, which she did. So she gave alms, all right, and helped out, probably the brotherhood and the church or whatever, and says good works. And as we read further down below, we find out what these good works were. It says, and it came to pass in those days that she was sick and died, whom when they had washed, they laid her in an upper chamber. Okay, when you go into the upper chamber, it talks about how women are in this upper chamber, the upper room. Okay, the highest part of the house, the upper rooms or story where the women resided. See, it says a room in the upper part of a house, sometimes built upon the flat roof of the house, because Israelites had, Some of them had like it was like they were all flat roofs. It was like 4-bedroom houses, but now they got us cramped up in apartments, man. Okay, this is what the devil does, cramp you up in apartments. And Israelites back then had 3 and 4-bedroom houses with an upstairs and a roof that they can go on and walk on because it was flat. Okay, they can store things up there. Okay, different acts where men being, people being let down from roofs. It's because the roof was flat. Then we got these slanted roofs and stuff like that. The roofs were flat, so they were able to stand up like it was, regular ground. But anyways, so let's go back. Oh yeah, it says something else about meditating and pray, but the upper chamber. But let's continue. It says, and for as much as Lydda was nigh to Joppa, as we just saw on the map, and the disciples, because meaning it was very close to it, nigh, and it was close. And once again, as we just saw on the map, it says, and the disciples had heard that Peter was there. They sent unto him 2 men, desiring him that he would not delay to come to them. Then Peter arose and went with them. When he was come, they brought him into the upper chamber, and all the widows stood by him weeping. So notice how it mentions the widows going into that upper chamber. Okay, excuse me. So these men came with haste, like Peter, they need you right now. We got to go. And he left with them, says, and showing the coats and garments which Dorcas made while she was with them. So that's those good works. She was making these coats and these garments, all right, to help out. And she was also giving alms. So we now understand when it says her alms deeds in her good works. So we understand what her good works were. Making these garments. And this is very important. Okay, back then to have a coat, a cloak, all right, a mantle, all right. So those things were very important back then in the ancient times. Now you got all kinds of, different clothes or whatever. All right. But to have, and you got individuals today, man. All right. Whether it be brothers or one sisters and sisters who actually make garments and things, for brothers. All right. Good works. So it says, and all the widows stood by him weeping and showing the coats and garments which Dorcas made while she was with them. But Peter put them all forth and kneeled down and prayed, and turning him to the body said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes. What does he say? He says, Tabitha, arise. Just it, 2 words. Tabitha, arise. Because it was through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua that this miracle happened. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. Okay? Tabitha, arise. And then you can, let me see if I can find this here. Because we just mentioned Lazarus, right? See if I can find the point. Because there's the whole chapter you pretty much can get into, because it's going to the account that leads up to. We're just trying to get the point here. Okay, let's start right here. At verse 38, John 11 and 38, Yahushua therefore again groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Yahushua said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. 4 days. Yahushua said unto her, Said I not unto thee that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of the Most High? Yeah, his power, man, what he's capable of. Let's get this word. Actually, I got the wrong one. I wanted to get glory. See the glory of the Most High. With his majesty, his magnificence, excellence, preeminence, dignity, grace, splendor, brightness. Okay. And she was seeing this through this work that Yahushua was about to make happen. It says, Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid, and Yahushua lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me, and I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. All right. He's praying out loud in front of, these individuals here. So because what's about to happen, he's about to rise Lazarus from the dead, but he prayed it out loud. So it goes to show you those people that were watching that he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord answered and rose Lazarus up. That's what he just spoke to Lazarus' sister. And he says that I told you, if you believe, you'll see the glory of the Lord. And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Yahushua said unto them, loose him, and let him go. Okay, and that's all we need there, because you can read that whole chapter on your own. All right, so I'm going to go back and finish this off. So it says, and he gave her his hand, going back to verse 40, but Peter put them all forth and kneeled down and prayed, and turning him to the body, said, Tabitha, arise. And she opened her eyes, and when she saw Peter, she sat up. And he gave her his hand and lifted her up. And when he had called the saints and widows, presented her alive. So we don't read that up above, but it's possible that he had everybody leave from the upper room. And he did this, I guess you could say in secret. I don't want to say it like that, but, just make it sound mysterious. But you get the point, though, because it says when he called, all right, the saints and widows, presented her alive. So he called them back. Like, here's Tabitha. And it was known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. And since this is what's happening with the gospel, even today, man, men are teaching on the streets. Heathens are hating it. Even other Israelites are hating it. But through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemashah, those that are meant to hear this truth and believe are waking up. All right, the valley of dry bones, they're waking up. And many are believed and being converted to the church, to the body, the Yahweh Shah, all right, to the household of faith, the tabernacles of David. And it was known throughout all Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. And it came to pass that he tarried many days in Joppa with one Simon a tanner. And that's also going to come up again, because we're still going to continue. As we go into Acts chapter 10 and 11, it continues talking about Simon. Peter, whose name was Simon Peter, who chilled out with Simon the tanner. And then eventually Saul's name comes back into play. And from where he was sent to, which is in Tarsus, his homeland, Saul of Tarsus. Okay. So that was it for Acts chapter 9. It was actually a pretty straightforward chapter. So Lord willing, you will edify to next time, Yashrala. I'm going to say Shalom.